So you may have seen some pretty big potential leaks being spread around the past couple weeks, specifically pertaining to World of Warcraft Classic Plus, where we got this possibly leaked image showing that Classic Plus is being called Camelot and would be revealed or released somewhere at the end of 2026. Now, there's actually been a ton of additional information around this leak, around World of Warcraft Camelot, and around pretty much everything else about these leaks. So I want to go over pretty much everything we know about this and if I actually think this is real. So let's start off with the leaked image, or one specific part of this leaked image. Now, this leaked image shows someone taking a picture with their phone of a screen showing what seems to be a timeline of releases for the Warcraft IP. This starts in 2024, around middle of 2024, and on the screen it goes until 2030. Presumably there may even be parts past 2030, and they have all the different versions of WoW. They even have other things in the Warcraft universe, potential other games. And at the top, you'll see mainline expansions. So this would be Retail WoW. You have the War Within, you have Midnight, you have the Last Titan, and then you have to be determined expansions. So 14.0 and 15.0, which just means they're unnamed expansions right now. All of those line up, but we will have already known basically when those are all releasing, because since Dragonflight, World of Warcraft Retail has been on a 56-day patch cadence, where they've pretty much hit a new patch every 56 days. So even new expansion launches are pretty easy to predict when they're going to be released. Then you go down and you have Classic/Camelot, which is where the leaks come into play. Now on progression, they have pretty much everything that's happening at Classic right now, where they're going through different Classic Fresh versions. They're going through some of the first expansions and basically just the progression of how they're releasing stuff in Classic as of right now and as of going back to 2024. But then you go on the next line and there is Era/Camelot, where Q3 to Q4 of 2026, there is something labeled as Camelot, and they are seemingly scrolling over this and it says live ops, so live operations, presumably meaning this is going to be something that's constantly or further developed on. Now, some people think this means that World of Warcraft Classic Plus is going to be called Camelot. This would be a code name as to not leak things, and when this was made, which would have been sometime in the middle of 2024, they probably didn't even have a name for this yet, so they used a code name. Now, what gets even more crazy is when we go below that, and the reason I say more crazy is because this Camelot name, as we'll go throughout this video, is something that has also been data mined on Blizzard servers. But if we go below that, we have one section labeled RTS, and it says Warcraft Chronicles RTS, which is slated for the end of 2028. There is also a bubble above this saying anime series, so this would presumably mean an anime series would be being created alongside the release of this new Warcraft Chronicles RTS, which the name Chronicles would kind of lead me to believe that this may be some like new RTS game that goes back over the story of the original 3 RTS games. That's the first thing my mind goes to, not necessarily a remake, but making a whole new game that goes over the entirety of the story of the 3 Warcraft RTS games, probably adding in new sections and changing them up based upon the lore that has been developed over the past couple decades since these games. Some stuff has been retconned, some stuff has been further explained so we know more about what happened. So I could very much see them making this kind of much larger RTS that re-goes over all of that stuff with the more modern version, so all of the new stuff we've learned, which could be pretty cool. An anime series going over that time period in Warcraft would also be pretty incredible. Having like Netflix or something making an anime series on that would be legitimately amazing. Then we have something kind of even more crazy, which is labeled Arthas ARPG, which is slated for, let's say, the end of 2029. There is also a label above that saying live action series, which would be absolutely ridiculous. Now, also, Arthas ARPG, I think a lot of people are directly going to like a Diablo-like ARPG, so that subgenre of ARPGs, which I don't think they would actually do, just because that would compete too directly with Diablo, which is their other game. Now, my read on this, and what's much more likely, is that this would probably be some co-op or single-player ARPG, more in the vein of like a Skyrim or a Witcher, or I guess potentially it could be a Souls-like, because all of those games are ARPGs. Souls-like games are ARPGs. The Witcher series are ARPGs. Skyrim or Oblivion are ARPGs. So there are a lot of games that fall under the category of ARPG. My presumption here, and if this is real, what I would want with this would be a single player or maybe even co-op open world action RPG, again along the lines of something like Witcher, where we play through as Arthas, maybe even start him as a kid and then go through the entirety of a story going up to the Lich King, and then also having fights as a Lich King. It would be really crazy if they went through his entire life and our final battle in this game is us fighting the Horde and Alliance coming to attack us in Icecrown Citadel, where they defeat us. So the end of the game is us getting defeated in this action RPG. That could be absolutely crazy. Now, you might be thinking that a bunch of the stuff seems too good to be true and this is probably just some fake leak, but there's actually information that at least the Camelot portion of this image is true. Because what kind of started all of this is that a few weeks ago, we got data mining that shows that there is heroic and epic licenses under World of Warcraft Camelot that was data mined. And this is tied to the 1.6.0 version of the game, which is under World of Warcraft Classic. Now, 1.6.0 isn't something that's in original World of Warcraft or vanilla. This would be further development on the Classic client of the game past what was originally in vanilla. And 1.6.0 was originally data mined sometime at the end of 2025, I think something like October 2025, where this patch of Classic was discovered, and there was never any like release clients or anything like that. This would presumably be a test build specifically only for the developers at Blizzard. So we had that 1.6.0 patch for Classic data mined last year, and then again, within the last couple weeks, we had these different licenses for World of Warcraft Camelot tied to that 1.6.0. But where the image comes into play is that this image showing World of Warcraft Camelot was originally posted on Reddit in August of 2025. And what's even more interesting is that the original post date of this image that we just went over with Camelot on it was actually pre 1.6.0 on the Classic servers even being data mined. So this precedes all of these other leaks. It precedes the new versions of World of Warcraft Camelot being data mined. It was before 1.0.6 was data mined as being in development on Blizzard servers. And people did go back and confirm this on the Wayback Machine that the original post of this image was on August 9th, 2025. Now, I'm not saying the entirety of this image is necessarily true. World of Warcraft Chronicles could be completely made up. Arthas ARPG could be completely made up. But in this image, World of Warcraft Camelot being there basically a year or a little less than a year before World of Warcraft Camelot was then data mined on Blizzard servers with heroic and epic licenses for it, definitely points me in the direction of this post having at least some real leaked information on it. Because Camelot is not a name that would normally be used in World of Warcraft. That's because it is a codename. Codenames for a lot of games, including most Blizzard games behind the scenes, aren't something that would usually be used within the actual game itself. So Camelot makes sense for a codename, but Camelot is absolutely not something you would just randomly guess into because it has no connection to World of Warcraft really. So this means that whoever posted this original picture back in 2025 had actual information from Blizzard that Camelot was an actual thing. Now again, this doesn't mean everything else on this post is actually real. Like again, World of Warcraft Chronicles and Arthas ARPG, they could have just added those. They could have just had information that Camelot was an actual thing being worked on, and then they mocked up this post and added other things to sensationalize it even more and just add crazier things on there. But the Camelot portion of this very much seems to be real, and someone had actual information on this way before other stuff was data mined. Now what's even more interesting is before people actually found this post and confirmed it through the Wayback Machine. People on Reddit were actually talking about and linking one of the original posts that the person who posted this image did on Reddit. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because from that deleted account that originally made the post of this image, they also commented on something very interesting. So they replied to someone on Reddit, I think just talking about future WoW expansions, and this person, again, the person that posted this image, responded saying, "This is correct. The next expansion will return to Black Blood / World Soul, with Azeroth being the final Titan and coming to life to cleanse the planet, including players. The last expansion will wrap up with us having to kill Azeroth to restore her, then off to WoW 2.0. Now, why this is most interesting is because this is claiming to be further information that we don't have about the future of retail World of Warcraft as well. And since this person, again, the person that posted the image, had actual information on Camelot that now has been data mined, it seems this person does have information from behind the scenes. Now, again, this person could only have information that Camelot is a thing, and then all of this other stuff is just made up to like get Reddit karma or whatever, or create fake leaks. But based upon this image showing something that would actually be used in a studio like this mock-up with this timeline would be something that you would expect to see behind the scenes at one of these companies if you worked on them, that I am leaning a bit more towards all of this being true than not being true. I mean, the Camelot thing is obviously true at this point since it was just data mined on Blizzard's actual servers, but the rest of it, I'm leaning more towards it being true than it not being true. And what they say here in this comment about the future of retail WoW does kind of make sense. A lot of the stuff has been theorized before, and the returning to Black Blood / World Soul is obviously true. I think we would have had some information on that when this post was actually made, but then Azeroth being the final Titan kind of makes sense, even though I guess technically Azeroth isn't a Titan, but this does kind of say that Azeroth would actually be a Titan, so they do actually order Azeroth and turn her into a Titan. That's why she wakes up to cleanse the whole planet and all of us, because she's now ordered as a Titan, and then we have to kill her to probably restore her to her normal version, and that would happen in The Last Titan. And then off to WoW 2.0 is also quite interesting, and this is actually something that I've theorized happening and a lot of other people have theorized happening, that after the World Soul Saga we have some pretty massive change. Maybe it's like a massive overhaul to the original continents, maybe it's a massive overhaul to some fundamental system in World of Warcraft, maybe it's some bigger reset, not necessarily in a reset of like, oh, we're losing all of our stuff or something. It may just be they're doing something really massive to try to make the game feel much more fresh and much more new. I think a big thing we can also do is head over the sea to Avalorn, which is seemingly where a massive Empire of the Light exists, which is where the Arathi we met in the War Within are originally from, where they have this kind of light emperor. So there is a ton of stuff they could do there, but a lot of people have been theorizing that WoW will kind of get like a 2.0 overhaul after the Last Titan expansion, which does also make sense. There is a ton of systems that I think need overhauled that could bring us a ton of new stuff, like an overhaul to character customization. We could have dyeable armor and weapons. We could have an overhaul to like glyphs, allowing us to have different colors and customization on skills. There could be an overhaul to just the base land of both the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor to bring it up to modern standards and massively increase the graphical fidelity of all of those. That would also fit pretty well into a Classic Plus. They released Classic Plus, which is further development on Classic, so you really want that pure Classic feel. You go play Classic Plus, that's now its own live service, and then in Retail World of Warcraft, we kind of get a massive overhaul to the game to bring everything up to modern, so there would be even more of a distinction between Classic Plus and Modern WoW, which would, I think, work pretty well because they are both on the same sub. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.